Yes. What's good, everybody, and welcome back to Veterans Minimum. I'm your host, Nick Deus. At Nick Deus 10 is where you can find me. Veteransminimum.com is where you can find all things VM. I am excited to be joined on this episode, and moving forward every Monday, I'll be joined by my dude, a professional sports bettor, guys, not just me who gives out these picks and has these breakdowns and whatnot. This guy does it for a living. Kenny bets big on social media. You've seen him as a sports betting analyst on ESPN, Omaha Productions, professional sports bettor. Like I mentioned, he sells picks. He's a consultant. He's also never been to Vegas, which is a crime. What's good, bro?
How we doing, Nick? How we living, baby?
We're doing good, man. It's I told one of my buddies that I was gonna have you on the show, and he was like, "Dude, it'd be dope if you went like 0-4 the day before, and then you have him on to like really consult you and put you on game." And I'm like, "That's cool, man. Just like blow my bankroll out, and then have this dude come on, right? Like, you don't want me to have some momentum going into this show when I got Kenny on."
Yeah, I saw your story. Looks like you crushed it yesterday. So no 0-4 for you.
Dude, listen, man. It's the first time that I wish I was living back in New York, bro. I gotta be honest with you.
Yeah, the curse of the FanDuel parlay. Your dad screwed up, right? I saw that. Ugh, that one stings.
Man, and the thing that's the most frustrating is like he actually knows sports betting. Like my pops and I growing up, that's how we bonded. It was over sports betting. A lot of people, it's like your dad takes you out to the backyard and he's throwing you a baseball and you got your glove and he's showing you how to shoot your free throws. It's like, nah. From a young age, my dad was like, "Yo, what's the line on this game? This is how we bonded, right?" And he knows this stuff, Kenny. So when I was calling him on the phone and we ran through the bets, anytime touchdowns, yardage, and all that, and he confirmed it too. And then after, I'm sitting on my couch, I'm like, "Yo, I just won like $5,000-$6,000." Spoiler, nope. And it a little bit of a buzzkill, dude. Actually, a big buzzkill. I couldn't sleep last night, if I'm being honest with you, Kenny.
Yeah, it's actually worse because you thought you had the bet in, but it's one of those where you're looking at a game on all week or all weekend. You love a certain game, and then you're like last minute you decide you're not going to play it, and they go on and crush the other team. It's kind of like that feeling where it's just a real burn that it leaves in you.
Dude, it's oh man, I don't want to talk about it, dude. Let's get into you because it's really done. It's hurting my heart. I think my heart rate is going up too. Like I can't take it. I'm starting to sweat. What is happening?
What was your reaction? Like, were you mad at your dad after? Like, what was that conversation like when you realized that you didn't actually win $5,000 or $6,000?
So here's the thing. It used to be my mom that I was having do these bets for me, and she ruined every single one. Like every single time, it'd be a UFC, and like I really bet soccer, UFC, and NFL. NBA, I dabble, and I'm very comfortable in NBA also, but it's more like situational betting I'll do in the NBA. Third game in 4 nights, back-to-backs on the road. These guys are going to sit out, things like that. But with UFC betting, I'm a prop hunter. So to win by knockout, to win by submission, inside the distance. And it's so much for my mom to navigate through. Like, at least with a point spread, she'll be able to figure it out, Kenny, for the most part. And she'll be like, "Dude, stop calling me to do this shit. I can't." First of all, she like sees my bankroll and she's like, "Why do you have all this money in there? Help us out, this and that." And all. I'm like, "Ma, nah, we're not betting here. We're financially investing our money in the right places." So she was like, "Dude, you got to stop doing this with me. It's too much stress, too much pressure." So I turned to my pops, and then that happened. So to answer your question, it was more like, you know how like your parents would say, "I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed." That's how I was talking to my pops.
Yeah, I can feel that one. So, but it's your dad. You got to just let him just take it on the chin and move on. You'll hit one this week. I feel it.
Let's go. That's a good omen, dude. I want to get into this. I want to get into you more than like this show, honestly, because I'm really excited to have you coming on board. You reached out to me, and we had a lot of fun conversations. And I'm always fascinated by people like you that do this for a living. How does that happen? Like, how did you start? I know this sounds very generic, but how did you get into sports betting? And then how did it become your profession now?
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty crazy. I feel like obviously I feel like I kind of got into it just like, we all get into it. I was in college, just something me and my boys would kind of do a lot small on a much smaller scale, obviously, like had a local bookie at my college that would give us accounts and I would just kind of play, small, crazy parlays, things like that, thinking I was going to get rich quick. And then, so I was actually going to school for biochemistry. I wanted to be a doctor, right? I got into a very bad car accident, like my last semester of school, ended up dropping out of college, got a sales job at Dish Network. So I was just selling TV packaging. I started making pretty good money there. And it gave me the ability to start taking bigger shots on the bets that I was making, to the point where I was making more money from betting on the games than I was actually making in my paychecks. So I was still probably about like 25 at the time. And I wasn't really, I knew I didn't want to be selling TV package the rest of my life, especially, going to school, what I went for. So I said, fuck it. We're going to take a chance at this. So I quit my job at Dish. I had a nice little nest egg bankroll saved up. And I just been at this ever since, grinding away.
Dude, that's wild. I like hearing stories like
Yeah.
that, man. Dish Network, and now you're selling packages, and it's like your profession now. That's crazy. One thing that I gotta ask that always fascinates me with these kind of conversations is the cold streaks, because they're gonna come, right? The hot streaks. Like,
Right.
are you someone that gets very high on yourself when you're on these runs? Do you get too low on yourself? Like, is there a happy medium? Where are you with that?
So to be like a successful sports bettor, you kind of have to really take the emotion out of everything, right? Especially, as you're betting on these games, when you win a big bet, sometimes your emotion can take you very high and then lead you down a bad path of maybe making bad bets or chasing certain things. Or when you're on a cold streak, maybe you start chasing and, you end up making bets that were poor bets that cost you even more money. So yeah, I think a big key is you have to be able to really take the emotion out of it and kind of just keep a level head, stay cool, calm, collected, regardless of what happens. And like my poster says on the back here, it says, uh, when sometimes you're flush and sometimes you're bust, and when you're up, it's never as good as it seems, and when you're down, you feel like you'll never be up again. And honestly, I really feel like that's literally the quote to live by. Like, when you're winning, you feel like you're God. There's nothing that can tell you anything in the world. But when you're on one of those cold streaks, it's one of the worst feelings. The biggest mistake I see new bettors make, especially like clients that will sign up with me, is just their bankroll management, and that's like the biggest key as far as being successful. Which I'm sure you can talk about that a little.
Yeah, how much of your bankroll is going into a said week or a game?
So, excuse me. When I have a new client sign up, I always tell them what I do is anywhere from 1 to 5% of your total bankroll as your base 1 unit play. Obviously 1% is going to be a little more conservative, but a safer approach, especially if you're just getting into it. Be a little more aggressive. And obviously, if things go south, you put yourself in a position to lose a little bit more of a substantial amount of money. Um, so yeah, I think keeping a structured amount is a big thing. I'm sure you've had it where, let's say you bet $100 on a game and you win, and then you bet $100 on the next game and you win. Now you're up $200, and there's a Sunday night football game. You're feeling super confident. You go and put $500 on it and you lose. Now you're 2-1. You're down money when you should in reality be up money. That's like the biggest mistake I see a lot of new gamblers make is you just got to be consistent. And if after at the end of the day, if you're up a unit and you're not satisfied with that, probably means you're not betting enough money, like in reality.
Oh, I love that. That's a good one.
Right. Like it.
Go on.
No, what were we gonna say?
I was gonna say that's something that I tell a lot of people how I have some friends that are obsessed with their against the spread record. And like, yeah, don't be 20-40, but if you're around 500, you're 38-35. I tell them all the time, there's a way where you could be 38-35 and you're up a big amount of money because of the unit size or how much you are wagering on some of those games. There's been times where I like doing on the Patreon and the picks that I give out. I'm in a couple of contests out here, and also like I'm not going to shout them out because they're not a sponsor. So until they pay, then I'll shout them out. But I do
I
a
like that.
contest every week where it's 5 games against the spread. Like I put out the 5 games that I'm going to enter into the contest. So to me, I I give those plays out. I talk about those plays, and I'll have friends ask me, "Dude, what are your picks this week?" And I'll send it to them. They'll parlay them. I'll go 4-1. They're like, "Dude, you don't know shit. What are you talking about?" It's like, "Yo, I just went 4-1." Are you kidding me? Like, yeah, the parlay didn't hit. Obviously, everyone likes the parlays. Everyone is obsessed with these parlays. And one of the questions that I did get from a member of our Patreon, shouts to Rune, had to do with parlays. First of all, how do you feel about parlays? I think I know your answer, but how do you feel about parlays?
Listen, if you're someone who has a little bit of money and you're trying to turn that into a large, substantial amount of money, yeah, I understand maybe playing straight bets sounds terrible to you. If you're someone who's actually trying to be a disciplined bettor, put yourself in the best chance to win money long term, parlays are a terrible idea. Just from the statistic standpoint, the mathematical edge you have, taking straight bets versus a parlay, parlays are a terrible idea. Especially, you look, the sports books clean up on parlays. It's the number one moneymaker for them, and that's for a reason. But I've also seen people who go from having a very small amount of money to they put $100 and win a $50,000 parlay, and now you've really changed your life situation in a day. So there is times where you can put them in for fun, but if you're someone who's looking to really make money doing this and really put yourself in the best position to win, you really shouldn't be putting any parlays. Like I don't do parlays. 99% of my bets are just all straight bets.
Dude, you'll start parlaying now that you met me.
No, you know why I don't. You know why? Because, and a lot of people can probably relate to this who are listening. When you start putting in parlays and $100 to win 15,000, and you're losing them, you're really eating into your bankroll. And maybe at first it doesn't affect how you make decisions, but when your money starts dwindling, you're really going to start second guessing certain things. You're gonna maybe be more hesitant to fire on a certain bet that is a great position. So the reason I try not to do those things is just because in the long run, it will affect your mental state as far as the bets you're making, if that makes sense.
Nah,
You know
it
what I
does.
mean?
Yeah, it totally does. I've recently started listening to my own advice. And I mean like within the last 18 months, where I was a parlay guy, big parlay guy. And then I think it was until the middle of last season where I really was like, dude, look, I'm hitting like 57% of my bets every week. For the most part, I'm going 3-2, 4-1. Yeah, I have some bad weeks too. I mean, everyone does. But for the most part, I'm looking at my record and I'm like, dude, I'm not capitalizing on some of these runs that I go on. And I've started to straight bet everything. Now I straight bet everything. Every parlay that you see me ever post, Kenny, I've straight bet it. So yesterday I did do pretty well. I mean, I did very well. I didn't miss on any of my bets yesterday. But it's the fact that they all hit that I got miserable. Like, it's never good enough, right? It's a saying I say with all my friends. Like, yo, it's never good enough. I went 4-0 against the spread, and then I hit all 6 of my props, anytime touchdowns, rushing yards under for Jalen Hurts. It's like, dude, you just cleaned up. But I couldn't, living back in the East Coast and being in a state that has the apps that you could parlay all these things. Is like, dude, I could have had a 5-6K day. So that's where it gets like discouraging. But you're right, dude. Like, betting it straight is more sustainable, and it's in the long term. I mean, you're a prime example of that. That's the optimal approach, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just even like I said, just looking at the math edge, right? If you're betting a -110 bet, your expected ROI on just one single play is what, -4.5%, right? If you do a 2-leg parlay with -110s, your expected ROI doubles almost to -9%. So just even looking at the math, parlays are not in the better's advantage. Sports books, if you go in and you start laying these huge parlays, sports books' eyes light up because they're almost donations. Like, yeah, of course you see the great stories, almost like lottery ticket hits, especially on social media. You see all these tickets circulating around where $10 to win $1 million, and it sounds great. And of course, anyone who wouldn't like to hit something like that, but it's just not very realistic, or like you said, sustainable long term.
Dude, that's what all of sports betting now has become in 2022. It sucks because it 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 gives out a false idea of something that is realistic, like you mentioned. They're dope, right? I've hit a parlay for the Super Bowl, a same game parlay. It was 330 to 1. And a lot of craziness had to go down in order for that to happen. But it's not
I can
sustainable.
imagine.
I haven't that's the biggest one I've ever hit. Right? Everything else is in the teens. I think those are a little more logical. Like I'll take 4 fighters that I think are going to win their fights outright. I might money line them. There, I feel like I do have an edge in certain fights, depending on how, stylistically and things. But that's nitty gritty going into a whole different topic. But it's it's difficult, man. These parlays, and I think they paint this picture where you always see it. You see on all these apps, House of Highlights, BR Betting, Barstool. It's like this dude put $7.77, 777, and shitty cash out this 18 leg parlay for 30K, and it's like, dude, these are difficult. But then what happens? You have someone that hits one of these bets, and then all of a sudden they're selling their picks or they're giving out their parlays every week. And it's just like you said, I've talked to people that make lines and sports bettors out here, sports bookmakers out here, and they said they're like, dude, it's donations, like you mentioned.
Yeah, especially being in the sports consulting space, someone who sells their picks. I see a lot of I guess, I mean, I wouldn't even consider them competition, but we'll call them my competitors because they're also doing the same field, right? The minute I see them on their card that they have parlays or certain bets that they're sending out to their clients, instantly I know, all right, this guy is not legit. Like, went down to, is he a winning sports better? Of course, like I said, there's always those people who hit a crazy, $100 to $30,000 bet or something like that. But that's just, you're playing the lottery. It's literally what you're doing. You're playing the lottery at that point. So
I got this question from Bernsey. He says, what is the best way to understand and improve on your own sports betting besides betting itself?
So what is the best way to what?
To understand and improve on your own sports betting bets. So like the bets they make besides betting on them. So basically what I'm gathering here from Bernsey. Also, Bernsey, be better, man. Word this a little better next time for us. Come on,
come on, Bernsey.
What are we doing? You're a Patreon member too. Like we expect greatness from you, legends. I'm taking this as like, how can you improve your sports betting? Just like your decision making or just your bets in general, to save you from making bad bets.
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake a lot of people make, like sometimes the best bet is no bet, right?
Dude, I want to cut you off quick because you blew my mind. Was it not last week? It was 2 weeks ago. We were texting each other after like a UFC event, and we were kind of like finalizing this like agreement to do the show together, and we're just like chopping it up. And I was like, dude, how'd you do today? And you were like, oh, I didn't bet nothing. And I was like, stop. You're like, yeah, I didn't bet nothing. Like how that's definitely what it takes also to be a professional sports bettor doing this full time. And I think your answer was something like, yeah, dude, if you want to do this full time, you can't be betting on every game or every day. Like what goes into that?
I mean, you have no shot. You have zero chance of surviving in this if you're someone who just needs constant action and firing on every single game. There are, you talked about it earlier, like you only bet the NBA based on certain spots. Throughout the NFL, if I would probably even do better if I only bet these primetime games. Obviously, I think there's certain edges throughout like a Sunday slate or whatever, what have you. But if I limited my bets to just primetime games, I would clean up probably just because I tend to do better on the primetime slots. But yeah, I think just a lot of new bettors need to realize like sometimes the best bet is no bet. Sometimes there's not really an edge for you to capitalize on or anything that maybe something in that game that puts it more in your favor. So I think definitely having the discipline to sometimes just keep your money, maybe watch the game as a fan, or go hang out with your girlfriend, or go walk your dog, go go to the gym, do anything to keep your mind off of it. But yeah, definitely limiting the need for action is a big one. No parlays, like we just talked about. You're really just shooting yourself in the foot taking parlays, um, especially for a lot of new people who are starting out with smaller bankrolls. I know it's great, cool. The concept of hitting one of these monster parlay, turning $100 to 10K overnight is sounds amazing. But long term, let's say you have $500 and the first couple days you're putting $10, $15 on parlays and you're missing them by one leg, two legs, one leg. Next thing you know, you go from $500, you're down to $350, and you put yourself backed into a corner here where you may not have as many options to kind of build and grow your bankroll.
Dude, I pulled up the text that we were having, and I was like, how'd it go for you today, man? I was like, I can't believe I let a friend of mine who just started betting talk me into Bucks minus 13. Because I just blindly, almost always, double-digit home dog in division, I'm taking it. And I fell into the trap of, they got rid of McCaffrey. PJ Walker is the quarterback. Brady's not going to lose 3 games in a row. Like, I was talking like such a square. And also the person that told me this is a square. And I'm like, dude, what are we doing? What are we listening to? And then you were like, dude, I haven't touched anything. The only thing you bet, you told me, was like Broncos plus 4.5 on Monday night, going back to what you were saying about your prime time. And I was like, look at you all disciplined and shit. And you're like, hey, man, if you want to do this full time, this is what it takes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because, one, especially like the Bucks minus 13, I hate laying points, especially 13 points in the NFL. Never. I could never lay that many points. Even if I think it's the best bet there is on the board, I'm not taking it. I'm not laying the points, especially in the NFL. The market is just so efficient, and I would always rather have the points in that situation.
So what goes into you deciding to make something your best bet, or for you to lay your money down? If you're not betting on every game, what makes it stand out?
Yeah, so when I say I'm not bet, I don't want to get it misconstrued. I still bet pretty frequently, right? Not every week do I take 4 or 5 days off of betting. I still bet pretty frequently because you do have to capitalize on the value that's in front of you. But a lot of it is, where is the money? Where are the bets? That's a big percentage of it. Obviously, I handicap the games. I look at, mismatches. How do teams feel, defend certain receiving positions? Like, the Chiefs for the first 6-7 games were the worst, dead last in the NFL in regards to DVOA against opposing number 1 wide receivers. So when they played the Bills, I was on Instagram Live for a whole week talking about how I think Stephon Diggs is going to go absolutely crazy. Like, the Chiefs can't stop a number 1 wide receiver. You look in the NFL, Josh Allen and Diggs have one of the best connections for the last several seasons. It just makes sense. Stephon Diggs is probably going to have a good game. And I think he went for like 148 that game. So he ended up having a good game. But yeah, so obviously handicapping the game, different statistical advantages, whether it's, DVOA, how does a defense match up against this position, or, how does this offense, match up against this defense that the team likes to run a lot? Like, maybe a quarterback is not very good against blitzing defenses, and this team blitzes 70% of the time. Well, all right, well, this quarterback's probably going to be in for a long night. It's little things like that. The biggest thing for me, though, is honestly, where's the money? Where are the bets?
Yeah, and to add to that, I agree with you. I also look at offensive line, defensive line. I think that's a good one. Like yesterday, I was on San Francisco just because the Rams already had their issues with the offensive line, and then you take away their tackle that got hurt in the game prior, and San Francisco was getting guys healthy. They also own them too. I don't know if you're into trends like that, but Shanahan has beaten him 8 straight times in the regular season, and the only one, Kenny, that he ended up beating him in was the NFC title game, which he did for me because I had a 15-1 Rams future on them to win the Super Bowl. So shouts to McVay getting it done when we needed it to get done. But that's another one that I look at too, man. Going back to what you were saying about the matchups and DVOAs, and if your entire offensive line is in shambles and then you're starting to lose backups against San Francisco coming in and they own you already, like, I think that game closed at a pick'em, and I ended up going with that too. So it's something where, to me, like, yeah, I have a lot of action going on throughout the weeks. But there are certain games which I'm sure your unit size changes depending on how you feel about it.
Yeah. So for the most part, like I said, I try to keep everything pretty standard, 1 unit. The highest I'll go is 3 units on a play, which is like a decent amount of money for me. So 3 units is like the biggest play I'll ever send my clients. It's the biggest amount of money I'll lay on a play. Like I said, because when you start going from betting 1 unit here, 2 units on this, 3 units on this, 1 unit again here, you're just really gambling on the gamble. You know what I mean? Um, you could be 2-2 at that point, but if you lose the big one, you win the small ones. Now you're losing money, or vice versa. So I really try and keep everything pretty structured and disciplined, because that, like I said, that's so paramount in being successful in this.
Yeah, dude, and that's also the difference between betting and gambling, which I don't know where you are on that one, but I feel as if there is a massive difference between the two. There's a massive
A
difference.
100%. Like, betting can be more like, if you're someone who especially does it professionally as your career, it can be considered more investing. And that may sound crazy to the average person, like, because it is still gambling at the end of the day. But there's a lot that goes into this. It's not just looking at the board, me being a sports fan and picking the team that I think is going to win. Because I'm sure usually the biggest sports fans are like the worst sports bettors. Like, I have friends who are crazy, crazy, Giants fans, or Mets fans, whatever have you, and they're some of the worst bettors there is, because they're constantly betting with their heart. They're squares, and we all know you never want to be on the square side.
You ain't kidding, man. You ain't kidding. And when you do the
It,
research
like,
and you're looking at the handicapping also, that's where you're betting. Gambling is when you're doing the parlays and you're just betting because, oh man, I can't watch this game on Thursday and not have some money on it. It's like, dude, if you don't like something, don't force it.
right. So, like, I'll give you a perfect example of what's gambling for me. So this weekend I had WVU first half full game. I don't know if you caught that game, but two terrible bad beats. Uh, First half they're +4.5, tie game. TCU has the ball. They're on like the 30-yard line. 20 seconds left in the first half. Guy breaks off for a 30-yard run. They kick the field goal. I hit that bet. Terrible way to lose. And fast forward, end of the game, I have them +7.5. Uh, they're down 7 points, or I think they're down three. Sorry, they're down three. TCU 4th and 1 on like the 30-yard line again. 30 something seconds left in the game. Guy jumps offside. They have a free play. They take a shot to the end zone. They score the touchdown and win the game by 10. So two back-to-back bad beats in that WVU game. Then I had the Cardinals yesterday, where the muff punt killed me, just absolutely killed me. They should have never not covered that game. And then I had the Lions. I had them first half, which that hit, and then full game, which they're up 21-7. They're plus. I have them +3.5. I lose by the hook. They lose by 4. Don't get shut out in the second half. So those were bad beats for me, and I felt like I was on the right side. I felt like things just weren't really shaking my way. So I said last night, I was looking at the Packers. You're telling me I'm taking Aaron Rodgers prime time? I'm getting 11 points on the road, fading the public in a prime time spot too. Like, the whole world was on the Bills last night. So I said, fuck it. I'm going to press this one. So I went 2 units on the Packers +11, and same thing in the NBA. Lakers were home 0-5, catching 3.5 points at home against the Nuggets, a team they played like 3 games prior. They got washed in that game, ended up losing by 11. Now they're short home dogs. Whole world betting the Nuggets. Give me the Lakers. LeBron, give me it. I love it. Feed it to me. So again, I went bigger on that game, just because I felt like the situation was in my favor. I felt like I was due to kind of, bounce back there. So
The goats came through for you.
yeah, I had to rely on the GOATs. Come on, Rodgers in prime time. Are you kidding me? That's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Yeah. And it segues into one of the things that I want to talk about with talking about week 8 and sort of recapping some of the things. I think we could lead off with that game because, Kenny, I left that game yesterday a little worried about Buffalo, dude. And I know that Green Bay comes back with the cover at the end, and, good teams win, great teams cover. We know that old saying. And the thing that is alarming to me is they are overly reliant on Josh Allen. And I know you could say that for a lot of teams. However, I think it's different with Buffalo because they can't run the ball unless it's Allen running the ball. They're starting to get injured in the secondary. I know Tre'Davious White is going to come back really soon, maybe this week or next week, but he's on the cusp of coming back. But the safeties are banged up. They're losing DBs, a lot of cluster injuries to the secondary. And this also applies, like I was saying, to all the quarterbacks in the league. If you lose your starting quarterback, you're going to be burned. But they run him a lot. And he's a very aggressive runner. Like, he bulldozers guys. And yeah, it's cool for social media and whatnot, but it just takes one play, man. And a lot of people give Lamar Jackson heat for his running style, but he's one of the more self-aware runners too. He slides, he gets out of bounds. He doesn't try to lower his shoulder into a DB that's 5'7", 180 pounds to run him over. Like, nah, that's not what he's doing. So I left that game a little worried. I left that game a little worried about Buffalo, dude. Am I bugging?
I mean, I may be biased here. I'm a Patriots fan. I have not been that high on the Bills all year. Only 3 times since I think like 1997 has the preseason favorite actually gone on to win the Super Bowl. I think the Bills, everyone's on the Bills bandwagon, Bills Mafia, Josh Allen MVP, Bills to go on undefeated was one of the bigger bets coming into the season that a lot of people were betting. Whenever I see it, kind of like that old Warren Buffett quote, about like investing in stocks. Like, when there's blood in the water, that's when you want to buy. When everyone's buying, that's when you want to sell. Like, you want to get out. I look at this Bills team, and like you said, Josh Allen gets punished. When you really watch them play, he takes punishment. You don't see Lamar Jackson getting squared up on any hit ever, right? Like, he may get hit, but he's not getting clean clocked by the defenders. Josh Allen, like you said, he'll lower his shoulder and he'll go in for it, try and level these guys, almost kind of like Cam Newton used to do. And Cam Newton's career, I felt like, was cut short because of the punishment he took. So yeah, I think the Bills are a team that's going to kind of fade as the season goes on. I think, they look great. The offense looks great. Josh Allen slinging the ball all over to Diggs, Gabe Davis. Looks great. It's fun to watch. But I think come playoff time, when they go up against Chiefs or a team like that, I think they'll fall short.
Yeah, the biggest thing that Buffalo has going for them, look, they are a really good team. I don't want to get it twisted. I'm not saying that they're the Jets, that they've overachieved so far through 8 weeks, or even the Giants too, which we'll get to in a little bit. But
love the Jets versus Bills this week. Love the Jets.
Yeah?
I love the Jets. 13? You kidding me? 13 points?
Yeah.
Dude, who's making these lines? Like, 13 points. And again, every square is going to look at that and say, give me the Bills. So what do I do there? Give me the Jets. 13 at home. I love it.
I have a friend of mine who, I'm not going to mention his name, but I'm definitely going to clip this and post this so he'll know who I'm talking about. He's my Bills guy. When I ask him what he thinks about this Bills game or the Bills line, every week he's been spot on because I'm going against him, right? Like, he asked me Buffalo and Miami a couple weeks ago. I wrote, I put out some tweet like, I think Miami catching 6 points at home, it's an overreaction. Back-to-back primetime games, Buffalo is blowing out these teams. I was like, I think the right play is Miami. And he writes to me, Bills by 3 touchdowns. And I go, all right, cool, good to know. Hammer money line, Miami. Hammer them catching the points. And with Buffalo, like, you're right. They were the most heavily wagered team to win the Super Bowl. Most tickets. Everybody you ask, Bills Mafia, this is the year. The thing that they do have going for themselves is that Josh Allen is playing at such a high level, Kenny. And also, like, I went to school in Buffalo, dude. They love the Bills there. Like, that Bills Mafia shit is legit. And when it's January and you're a Chargers team or Vegas is going to be a bad example because they're not going to make the playoffs. But you're like one of these Miami going into Buffalo in January where it's going to be 4 degrees and it's going to feel like minus 30. That's where Buffalo, some of these concerns, that might be a way to balance them out with that weather.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at the AFC, a lot like the Chiefs, I mean, it gets pretty cold there.
Yeah.
The Ravens, you look at the teams that will really challenge them for the AFC. I feel like they can handle the cold weather. I really like the Chiefs. I just think they're getting so slept on. I like the Chiefs and I like the Ravens, especially at the price the Ravens are at. I've been Lamar Jackson. I have him to an MVP at plus 2,000. So hoping he kind of picks it back up. He was crushing it the first few games and it kind of tailed off the last few. But Big win in Tampa, so hoping he picks it back up. But yeah, I'm just not sold on the Bills, man. Like I said, how often have we seen it where these teams where it seems like everyone is on one team, it just doesn't ever work out. Like there's a reason they're building these big monstrous casinos in Vegas every year. Like new ones updating them. It's because the house always wins.
Yeah, you ain't kidding about that, man. And I know that Kansas City had a bye week, but I felt the same way about Kansas City. Like Mahomes was my MVP pick this year, and it was I coined it the FU tour. It's the revenge tour.
Yep.
Like, yo, everyone's talking about Herbert, and I'm a Herbert guy, dude. Like, I love Justin Herbert. Everyone's talking about Burrow. Maybe Tua takes the leap now that he has Tyreek and Waddle, and Jalen Hurts is getting all this attention coming into the year with the additions that they made. And you're looking at the second-year quarterbacks people were high on. Well, Trevor Lawrence, now he has a head coach. Maybe he could take the leap. And then Mahomes is like, dude, I'm 27. I'm not 47. Right? Like, what happened to me? All right, we lost Tyreek Hill, but I love the additions that they made. And you're right. Like, they're not that they're being slept on. They're kind of just, I think everyone's just used to Kansas City. They're like, oh, yeah, it's the Chiefs. Where it's not exciting. It's exciting to be hyped for Buffalo now. Because not that it's new, but it's, everyone has seen the 30 for 30 for them losing the 4 straight Super Bowls, and Bills Mafia trends on social media every week. Someone goes through a table or whatnot. So I'm with you, man. You're right. You bring up a good point. I didn't think about that. How the teams that are going to compete with them, they're all cold cities. Baltimore, Cincinnati, it gets cold also, Kansas City. So it's going to
like the Dolphins look nice, but no one really thinks they'll win the Super Bowl, right? Like they're not a threat, dude. Like that defense, you see what the Lions offense was doing to that defense? Imagine what Mahomes or the Bills will do to them in the playoffs. They'll get absolutely torched. So yeah, I think like the Dolphins, they're a nice team, but a real contender, I think they're a year or two too early for like the Dolphins or teams like that.
What do you make of Dallas? And please be gentle because I'm a Giants fan, and like it's just be gentle. That's all.
I just think Dallas is Dallas, right? Like we saw them last year. They looked like one of the most dominant teams in the NFL. Playoffs get there and they kind of fold like a cheap suit. And I don't really expect anything different from them. I mean, the NFC is a little bit weaker this year, but you look at the teams around them. I think the Niners are a better play. I think the Bucks are a better play. I just think there's better options in the NFC. Like the Eagles look unstoppable. The Eagles look right now. They're definitely the most well-rounded team in the NFL, in my opinion.
Yeah, Dallas. It was around this time last year also where I coined it the first round bounce dance that we're gonna do. We're gonna bet against the Cardinals in the first round. We're gonna bet against the Cowboys in the first round, and sorry to break it to you, I said the Patriots also. Like I felt like all 3 of those teams were frauds. Yeah, they were gonna be good in the regular season, but come playoff time, they were gonna get exposed. And look, all 3 of them lost in the first round, right? And I think with Dallas, dude, Parsons, the play he made yesterday on the touchdown, Kenny, was like I was on my couch and I'm leaning all the way back and I'm just like chilling, kind of falling asleep a little bit because I had a rough Saturday night. And what I mean by that was 9 straight hours of Call of Duty. I'm watching that.
You playing with Murray or what?
yeah, just like Kyler, yeah. Parsons makes that play, dude. And like he rushes the passer and then he goes all the way back 25 yards down the field, picks up the fumble. Yeah, Justin Fields doesn't tag him and then scores. It's like, dude, that guy is high motor. Like he's the best defensive player in the league for me. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, yeah, you don't think so? Who would you say?
I mean, we still got Aaron Donald playing in the league.
Yeah, but dude, like, I think we can.
I get it. He's at the tail end of his career, but like Aaron Donald is still Aaron Donald. And TJ Watt is still TJ Watt. Obviously, you can't discredit what Michael Parsons is doing, but he's still a little early to say he's the best defender in the NFL, in my opinion. TJ Watt looked great last year. Obviously, he gets hurt this year, but in my opinion, it would be Watt or Donald for me.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. I feel as if Aaron Donald is the consensus pick for a lot of people. I think TJ Watt is the best pass rusher. Like if it's 3rd and 6 and I need a sack, I want TJ Watt. Like he could break a double team. Okay. Like that's the guy. Overall defensive player, like Parsons is all over. He's covering running backs. He's making plays 20 yards downfield, like completely impacting a game. I think it's Parsons. And am I crazy to think that if I got a notification that he's missing next week, that I should adjust my handicap for him? I know it's weird because it's a defensive player, but dude, I feel like he's that impactful for that team and that defense.
100% he is. I mean, like you said, the play he made yesterday alone kind of showcases what he does for that Dallas defense. Not many guys in the league could make a play like that, where they're pass rushing Justin Fields, running back another 25 yards, picking up the ball, running it in for a touchdown. Not many guys can do that. So yeah, no, you definitely have to account for him, being out there. Their best defender by far. So,
do you ever adjust your handicaps based on non-quarterbacks missing games? Because I feel like there's a few that if Cooper Kupp was to miss a game for the Rams, I'm adjusting. Micah Parsons, like I mentioned. Off the top of my head right now, I'm struggling, but those are the two that come out to me. Like, is that something you do as well?
So I like to look at how everyone is reacting to the injury news, right? So if let's just say, I don't know, Cooper Kupp is ruled out, or the starting quarterback is ruled out. If everyone is like super against that team, I like to take that team in that spot. So, you talked about the Panthers when they played the Bucks, starting PJ Walker. Everyone's kind of looking at that game going, ew, PJ Walker, the third string quarterback starting, and no one wants to touch it. And they're thinking the Bucks are a lock there. I would like the Panthers in that spot. I kind of look at it. I just like to be the opposite of where the general sports square bettors are.
I wish I got that memo before I put the Bucks into my contest a couple of weeks ago. That would have been nice. Here I am thinking.
But how many times do you see, right, Nick?
Yeah.
Like, how often do you see it where a guy's ruled out? You're like, they got no chance without him. How are they going to stop so and so, or how are they going to contain the run game, or who's going to throw the ball? And you buy into that hype, and then they play the game, and it doesn't translate on field and in the results. So I kind of stopped trying to buy into like that media hype, and I just call it white noise, right? Like, it doesn't really matter anything.
Yeah, dude, I felt the same way about the Cowboys in week 2 when they ruled Dak out and the line flipped like 9 points, which was wild, right? Like, he gets hurt. Yep. He gets hurt in the Sunday Night Football game against Tampa. And I've talked about this before, but to me, I knew what Cooper Rush could do in that spot. And now this time he's at home. Last year he was on the road in Minnesota. And the look ahead for that game was Dallas -2.5. And then Dak gets ruled out, and it's Cincinnati -7.5 in Dallas. It's like, and everyone's telling me, Cincinnati in the eliminator pool is a lock. They're going to blow them out and all these things. And I'm like, okay, again, similar to what I was telling you about with my buddy with the Bills. It's like, he's telling me that the Bengals are going to rout them. Done. That's all I needed to hear. I'm on Dallas to cover. I'm on Dallas as a best bet, and that's exactly what ended up happening.
Yeah, it's crazy for especially people who are listening who maybe are not like super into sports betting, or they're just getting into it. It sounds crazy, like saying, Dak Prescott's out, let me bet on the Dallas Cowboys, right, with Cooper Rush. But I think kind of what happens too is you lose your star player, the rest of the team has to step up to keep things going, right? So maybe you get a better performance out of the offense, or maybe the defense knows, hey, we don't have Dak, we really got to step up and limit the other team's offensive production. Maybe they're a little more dialed in, whatever have you. But you look at how often it happens where the quarterback goes down, everyone's writing them off, they have no chance, and then they come out, they cover, they win. But covering is really all that matters.
Hey, man, you got to bet numbers, not teams. You know this.
No, yeah, that's. How long did it take you to figure that out as a sports player? Like, how much money did you have to lose before you realized, like, and it sounds nuts, right? Like, what on the field almost doesn't matter. Like, you look at last night's game, the Bills are dominating that game all game. I'm texting, a couple of my buddies tailed me with the Packers, and they're freaking out. And I told them, dude, this game, the Packers are going to cover this game. There's nothing you're telling me where the Packers will not cover this game. They may be down 14-21 the whole game, but I promise you, Mima left that back door open. Aaron Rodgers will score a touchdown. They will cover at the end of the game. And that's exactly what ends up happening. So we see it all the time where these teams who have no chance, or they have no business, being in the game, and then they just come back cover, or they go for two at the end like the Eagles did a few years ago, get the pointless 2-point conversion to cover the spread. It just happens too often to ignore.
Well, dude, that's why the point spread was created for, right? Because everyone could tell you who's going to win, Buffalo or Green Bay. Yeah, everyone's going to pick Buffalo, and everyone was right. Now, are they going to win by more than 11 and a half, 11, 10 and a half, wherever you got that number? That's where the sports bettors come in. That's where the lines were created for these kind of conversations. I don't know if you were on the Panthers at all, if that was something on your radar. This isn't so much to talk about the breakdown of the Falcons and Panthers game, Kenny, but more so that has anyone become a hero to zero quicker than DJ Moore this year after what happened with that penalty? And isn't that the dumbest penalty I think it's the dumbest penalty in football.
What, that they dumbest penalty as far as that they are not allowed to take their helmets off?
Dude, how are you going to that? And also, what is the difference? Is that a worse penalty than when a team gets an interception and all 11 defenders sprint to the camera and do a choreographed dance for 25 seconds? How is that not unsportsmanlike? But I just made a crazy play. It's a natural reaction for me to bug out. And yeah, I take my helmet off. I'm hyped. We just won the game. I get it. You want him to go to his sideline and then react. But it's like, dude, we've won 2 games all year. We just a Hail Mary play. And I'm just not, this is my authentic 100% how anybody would feel on the planet if they made that play. And you're going to penalize them for that?
Yeah, it is a stupid penalty, right? And I feel like it's kind of where the NFL gets into that problem where people, as a fan, you're kind of like, dude, what are you doing out there? Because when you're seeing DJ Moore explode like that, take his helmet off, celebrate with his teammates, it kind of, you feel with it. You have a connection to him in that sense, right? It's like a little bit of a human element to it. Whereas a lot of the times watching these guys, you can't relate sitting at home watching what's going on. But when DJ Moore is going crazy after catching that ball, you kind of have a feeling what he's feeling in that moment. It has to be one of the craziest feelings ever. It's a sick play, yeah. But yeah, as far as anyone going from hero to zero like that, you hate to see it. I mean, but at the same time, is it really his fault? The kicker has a makeable kick. You got one job. Just chip it in, man. Come on. I think more blame should go on the kicker than DJ Moore in that situation.
You're talking about him missing the kick in overtime?
But didn't he miss the extra point to win the game?
Yeah, but that got pushed back. So a 30.
Yeah, but I mean, it's what, a 48 yarder, 50 yarder.
I don't know, man. I hear you. Listen, I was a kicker in college, so I'm a little biased, but it's a
today's NFL. These guys are kicking 63 yarders. You're telling a 50 yarder now to a good NFL kicker is almost like a breeze. Justin Tucker is not missing a 50 yarder, right? You put Justin Tucker out there, it's almost automatic. A lot of these kickers, it's almost automatic from 50 in. Yeah, I mean, obviously you put your team in a bad position there, taking the helmet off, getting the penalty, but you still expect the kicker in that position to win the game for you.
I just got told in my ear that he wasn't on the field, but still, it's just dumb to me that that's a penalty. I don't get it. I didn't like that at all.
It's almost like one of those penalties where it's 3rd and 19 and the ref calls a stupid, hands to the face or defensive holding 5-yard first down penalty. Those in my opinion are the worst ones. I hate those calls.
Yeah. From a X's and O's standpoint, on the field, defensive holding, automatic first down, to me is the dumbest one, right? That one, I've always ranted and bitched and moaned about that one because it shouldn't result in an automatic first down. If it's a 3rd and 4 and you call defensive holding, yeah, that's a first down. But when it's 3rd and 18 and you call defensive holding to be an automatic first down, that upsets me.
Let me ask you this. Do you think the NFL or sports in general are rigged to any degree?
Nah, I don't buy that, man. I don't buy that. Okay. And I know it's difficult to say that sometimes because you have these documentaries coming out with Tim Donaghy, right? That recently just dropped on Netflix. And you've heard these stories of Arizona State in the early 90s. And even I'm a big soccer fan. I don't know if you are, but overseas in Europe, there's corruption all the time. Syria, Juventus had their
Sergio
scandal.
Ramos.
Yeah, like they have all these incidents that come up, but for the most part, nah, I don't think. I have friends that text the group chat like, "Oh, dude, the Panthers are definitely going to cover now. The NFL's with them. Like it's rigged. They got the call from Vegas." I'm like, "No, dude, I don't believe in that." Do you?
I don't know, man. It sounds crazy.
Wow.
It's Here's why it just sounds crazy saying it's rigged, because there would have to be like such a high level of corruption involved, right? There's so many moving parts. Like, how do you not get the athletes to talk about it? And there's a lot of different pieces involved for it to be kept so hush hush. But when you watch some of these games and you see the calls that are made, or the Eagles going for two in that situation, when the game's over, there's literally no point to go for two there. Why are you going for two? And they go for two to cover the spread. It's things like that that really make you kind of question. Or you mentioned Tim Donaghy, when he comes out and says every single NBA ref is betting on the games. Like, you trust me on the games. Yeah, I mean, how do you not think there's some degree of fixing involved, right? Like Sergio Ramos in soccer, where he got caught for he was like his friends were betting on him to get red cards. Do you remember that a few years ago?
Oh yeah. I mean, he's had I think like 43 red cards in his career. Also, it's wild.
Yeah. Do you remember he got suspended though because his boys were like going betting money on him to get a red card or get two yellows or whatever it was, and they would bet on him, and he would go out there and make it happen.
But dude, that's also an obvious one that would get investigated.
Right.
Like when this all got legalized and all the people were saying, "Oh, the integrity of the game," and people are going to sell games and they're going to corrupt games. Like, no, I don't think I can go up to LeBron James and be like, "Hey, man, cover the plus 7.5. Here's 50K." He's like, 50K with 100K. What is that? I do that. I make that in 3 dribbles or whatever it was. Like, what was that stat with Steph Curry? I think like every 3-pointer he's made, it's like a $57,000 shot in his career, like what his salary is, something egregious like that.
Must be nice, right?
Yeah, it must be nice. It's like, dude, yeah, I'm not going to be able to buy a professional athlete's trust to throw a game. Where there might be corruption is like in college, which is what I always felt, right? Like even with the NIL deal, if I'm a point guard for Ole Miss and you come up to me like, "Yo, bro, here's $10,000. It's like, dude, I'm broke as shit. Right? Like Ole Miss isn't a traditional basketball. I'm not the point guard for Duke where I'm getting all these NIL deals. Like, yeah, at the college level, I think that's where you could see corruption. But when it comes to professionals, nah, man. I just think sometimes it's the human element too. People just make bad calls and bad mistakes. I don't think it's ever, "Oh, it's 47.5," and you'll hear Al Michaels be like, "Oh, that one meant something to some people." Right? Like he always talks about that. As we start to wind down,
I love hearing those little statements.
yeah.
There's some people super happy and there's some people kicking their couch,
And that's a tip of the cap to the degenerates like we are. Couple more things before we start to wrap up, man, because we're running up on time here. I want to mention the Minnesota Vikings. Every week, I look at the standings, or I'll go to NFL.com. I'll go somewhere and I'll just look at the standings. And there's always a team that I'm either shocked at their record in a positive way or in a negative way. Minnesota's 6-1, and everybody that I talk to, even here at the studio, it's like, "Yeah, dude, they're not for real. They're not legit." How do you feel about Minnesota?
So I actually have a bet I put in before the season for the Vikings to make the playoffs. I got it like minus 130 for them to make the playoffs. Looks like a lock at this point. I like the Vikings. I like their team. I think Kirk Cousins is an underrated quarterback. Obviously, in prime time, he gets a lot of heat, but I think he is an underrated quarterback. If you look at the last few seasons, he's usually in the top 10. I think they have an elite running back in Dalvin Cook. The receiving weapons are there. Justin Jefferson, you can say he's top 3, top 5 in the league at the wide receiver position. They have some nice pieces on defense. And I think they're a sneaky team. When you look at teams like the Niners or the Eagles, what their odds are to win the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl, you look at the Vikings, like they're a pretty similar team in that category for me at least. And I think they're like 800 plus 800 to win the NFC Championship. So I think there's value to be had on them. I think they're a good team, definitely. And I like what the coach is doing in his first year coming over for the Rams. I think they just look a lot more polished and well-rounded compared to the last few seasons under Zimmer.
Yeah, I felt like the upgrade from Zimmer to O'Connell was a 2 to 3 win upgrade. And so far out the gates, one of my favorite bets, and I made this bet too, was them to win the North, like plus 240. I got it at.
Yep.
And yeah, they have Justin Jefferson. I picked for Offensive Player of the Year. I know he was a very popular one, but I got him at 16-1. I bet O'Connell to be the Coach of the Year. I know you have an interesting one we'll get to in just a second, but they checked a lot of the boxes. But I think it comes down to Kirk Cousins. Like Kirk Cousins just isn't. He just doesn't excite you when it comes to long-term success in the playoffs because we just haven't seen it. What's he won? One game, I think he won. He won that game when they won in New Orleans with Minnesota, and then they got throttled by San Francisco. So you just don't have the trust in Kirk Cousins. But I really like the makeup of this team, and I think they're just being slept on, dude. I'm high on Minnesota coming into the year, and what I've seen so far, like 6-1. How could you not be?
Yeah, and you look at the one loss to the Eagles. Like I loved the Eagles in that spot. It was a Monday night game. Vikings coming off a huge win over the Packers, like their nemesis for the last few seasons. It's like finally they got over that hump, right? Beating Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. And I just think it was like a perfect letdown game for the Vikings there in that spot. Yeah, I think the Vikings have tremendous value as far as the rest of the season outlook is concerned.
As we wind down, let's talk some futures. Do you ever make futures like in season, or does everything just come down to you seeing numbers that you like and you go from there?
No, I actually prefer to do the future bets like in season, after being able to see kind of how things are kind of setting up for the rest of the season. Like last year, I got the Rams mid-season to win the Super Bowl. I got a way better price than before the season started. I had the Bucks a few years ago to win the NBA championship, way better price than when the season started. So I think I like to do futures when I feel like I'm getting a better price than what, kind of like you with Mahomes last year to win the MVP. And I like waiting to during the season because I feel like you just have a better idea of what to expect, right? As opposed to kind of going into it blind before the season starts.
Yeah, I wish I heard that before the season. Would have saved me a couple $100 on the Chargers because I might be burning that ticket. I don't like it at all, dude. But
yeah, see, like even that, right? Like the Chargers this year, like you look at teams coming into the year, like the Chargers, all the talk was on the Chargers, all the hype. They got all these nice pieces. Khalil Mack, Justin Herbert has all the weapons. Justin Herbert's going to take a big step up this year. And disappointing. You look at the Browns last year. The Browns were that team. Everyone thought the Browns were going to take that next step, and they kind of did what the Browns do. They sucked. Again, perfect example of when everyone is buying into something, just typically doesn't happen. Just never.
Dude, I wish. Oh man, that's why sometimes it upsets me so much because I was on the Chargers to win the Super Bowl this year, like halfway through last season. I was like, yo, it's gonna be the. And it was like, why can't I lock that number in and lock like that take in now before everyone started getting on board? And I like that call though, dude, about betting it later on in the year when you've had things play out and you have an idea of what teams look like. I think that's a way better call. And it's also, I don't want to say safer, but it's good to know that, all right, this is what I expected through 8-9 weeks, as opposed to like how I am now with the Chargers, all the injuries and guys are in and out the lineup left and right. And I think the coach holds them back too. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Yeah. And even from like just like a value standpoint, right? Like typically if you look at the preseason favorites, how often do you see like a player, let's say for MVP or a team to win the Super Bowl? You don't really ever see them just dominate from start to finish. There's usually some sort of like stretch, whether it's a 2-3 game stretch where they're kind of struggling, and then the perception of them lowers, where you can get a better price. We saw it with the Rams last year. We saw it with Mahomes for MVP, even though he didn't win it. But you get better odds. You're putting yourself in a better position to make money at the end of the day.
You got any futures for me rest of the year? Give me one that you like.
Yeah, so obviously I already talked about it. I bet Lamar Jackson to win MVP at plus 2,000. I think he's like plus 900 right now. He's fourth in the standings behind Allen, Hurts, and Mahomes. So, I think a few Lamar Jackson like games where he rushes and goes crazy for a couple touchdowns, I think he can easily jump to the top. So I don't hate him still at the odds he's at, but you're not getting the preseason price there. I like the Bucks to win the NFC South. I know the Bucks have looked terrible, But come on, we're talking about the Falcons, the Saints, and the Panthers. And I just, as much crap as he's gotten and as bad as they've looked, I just think Tom Brady's going to figure it out at some point. I'm a Patriots fan. I've seen him do it for many, many years with the Patriots. His first year in Tampa, right? A lot of people were writing him off there. I think they started 7-5. A lot of people were saying Tom should have stayed in New England, man. He should have stayed with Bill. He's not the same without Bill. And then they, go on a crazy run to end the season and win the Super Bowl there. So yeah, I like the Bucs to win the NFC South. I just think they're going to figure it out at some point. And you're telling me they just got to be better than the Falcons, the Saints, and the Panthers. I like that.
I mean, look, he don't got a family anymore, right? Like the divorce is being finalized. This is what you wanted, so you better turn it around too, because he's gonna have a lot to prove now, because this is what he wanted, this is what he asked for. Mm-hmm. He's picking football, and now just moving forward, he's gonna get a lot of shit for that. And if it doesn't turn out, like if they go 6-11, it's gonna be like, dude, you see the memes already. Like, dude, this is what you ruined your family for a 6-win team. It's like, nah, this dude's about to run the table, isn't he?
But do you foresee that happening with Tom Brady?
Nah, I think he's going to turn it around. You're trusting it. The team is good too, right? Like we're not talking about the Panthers here. Like the Bucs are good. Do I have my concerns? Yes. I think there are some issues that are alarming, like losing to Carolina was definitely a red flag for me. But you lose to Baltimore. I'm not that upset about it. You lose to a Packers team. I'm not that upset about it, even though they're not as dominant. It's still Aaron Rodgers. It's still sort of a little bit of a rivalry game between the two GOATs at their position. So to me, I think they turn it around. Do you have the odds for them to win the South? It got to be a lot shorter than.
Yeah, it's minus 135 is what I saw it at.
Dude, preseason, they were like minus 400, minus 500 in many spots.
Yeah, so this is definitely probably the best value you're going to get on them. And I think, like I said, I think they're starting to kind of figure things out. I think against the Ravens, the offense looked a little better than it has in weeks prior. I think they got to figure out the offensive line issues. I think that's really what's holding them back. Tom Brady's getting the ball out at the fastest, rate in his career, because he just doesn't have he has no time to get protection there. So yeah, I think they fix the offensive line. They'll be in good shape because the defense is legit. They're top 5 in regards to defensive DVOA. So, the defense has the talent. They have the players. They were a little banged up last game, missing a couple of pieces in the secondary, which I think kind of hurt them there against that Ravens offense. But yeah, I think they'll put it together. Too many veteran players, too much. They're champions, right? They got the championship blood in them. I think they'll figure it out.
One thing that jumped out to me as I was looking at defensive rookie of the year odds was Aiden Hutchinson. He's 16-1 right now, consensus across a bunch of books. And yeah, I know their defense is abysmal, right? They get lit up every week. I think all but one game, the over has hit in Lions games this year. Like they're in shootouts all the time. They got shut out by the Patriots. I think that's the one that went under. But I'm looking at him, and my question to you also, and tell me what you think about this one. First of all, Aiden Hutchinson to win Rookie of the Year. And the reason why I bring that up, Kenny, is because coming into the year, he was the consensus favorite to win it, Defensive Rookie of the Year. And now you're getting him at 16-1. He's healthy. We've seen him play. We know that he could cut it in the NFL. Is that something that you look at too, similar to me betting Mahomes last year? I only did it because I looked at the second half of their schedule. I thought they could run the table. I saw a roadmap that he could end with close to 40 touchdowns. Stats-wise, he was going to be there. And I was getting the preseason favorite. Now I'm getting him at 20-1. I bet Mahomes last year. Is that something you look at also when you're looking at these numbers?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like you kind of have to, right? You have to kind of foresee what you think could happen going down the stretch. Like, perfect example, a couple of years ago when Sean McVay first took over the Rams, I was looking at the odds, seeing how the Rams were performing. They were like, right there at the top of the division. The year prior, they were terrible. And I said to myself, I was like, listen, if the Rams win this division, Sean McVay has to win Coach of the Year. I liked the Rams' chances at that point. It was pretty much them and the Seahawks. So I took a shot on Sean McVay to win Coach of the Year. I think I put like $500 on it at the time and paid out over $12,000. Just because like you said, I had the foresight, like, listen, he doesn't really need to do too much. He just has to win this division. Based on how they started, the rest of the schedule that I was looking at, I thought they had a great chance to really do that. And they did. They won the division. He won Coach of the Year and won me a lot of money. So, yeah, I think you're spot on there. You kind of have to look at the rest of the season and kind of have a game plan as far as what you think is going to play out. Obviously, it's gambling. We're not, fortune tellers. It doesn't always go as planned, but definitely you can find great value doing that.
Dude, I bet last year when they were the 1 seed, like 2 weeks before the season ended, Mike Vrabel, Coach of the Year, was like 8-1. I was like, how? He's going to be the 1 seed. The receivers were hurt all year. Derrick Henry, he didn't have for half the season. Like, how's this dude not going to be Coach of the Year? And everyone was talking about Belichick and the rookie. And I'm like, nah, bro, it's going to be Mike Vrabel. 8-1. Lovely.
Yeah, that was a steal.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
Even this year.
What's up?
What were you saying?
I said I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I was going to say, even this year, like now the odds have dropped. That was one of the other bets I like is Nick Sirianni, Coach of the Year. I took him a couple weeks ago. The odds were a little bit better. Now he's sitting even money to win Coach of the Year. I mean, how do you? I understand Brian Dable is doing big things for the Giants as well, but again, season outlook, I think the Giants will kind of regress and come back to reality a little bit. And I think it'll be a great season for the Giants and Brian Dable. I think it'll be a win for them at the end of the season as far as what they expected versus what's going to happen. But I don't think they're going to continue on the path that they've been on. The Eagles, on the other hand, I do think the Eagles have a legitimate shot to run the table undefeated this year. You look at them play, they can do everything very well. The defense is elite. They go out and they get the guy from the Bears, the defensive end, just to make them even better. I heard you, kind of compare it to Von Miller, the Von Miller acquisition last year. You watch them on offense. They'll do the RPO option. Jalen Hurts is running out of the pocket, and the defender will kind of bite on it, and then he gives it to AJ Brown running a little flat route, and then he busts it long. Like they can kill you in so many ways. I really like this Eagles team. I think they're a big team, and I kind of saw I think they're going to continue to run the table here. So I jumped on Nick Sirianni. I got him at plus 400, and like I said, he's even money now. But I still think that's a steal because I think the Eagles will be the best team at the end of the regular season.
I hope so, man. At DraftKings, I got them 28-1 to have the best record in the regular season. So I'm hoping that that turns out.
When did you put that in?
In August.
Oh shit, that's a nice bet.
Yeah, from the beginning of the year, man.
What went into it? Why did you take that? Just because you thought the division was weak, or?
I really bought into AJ Brown going over there because I feel like if you're a young quarterback, you need to have a real alpha stallion wide receiver. You need to have a guy that can help you. I looked at the schedule. I thought the schedule was going to play in their favor. And they just made all the moves in the offseason. Like, they made all the right moves, too. They didn't do what Jacksonville did where they're like, oh, we have all this money here. We need to give it out. It's like, no. We went and we got another corner. We went and got a stud wide receiver. Now our stud wide receiver from last year in the first round, he's going to be a number 2 guy, which he's always going to be suited to be a number 2 guy in the NFL, Devontae Smith. So the big thing that I was banking on was Jalen Hurts. And that's what I think a lot of people's concerns were coming into the year. And rightfully so, dude. Like, I don't think what you felt about something isn't allowed to change when you have new information given. We never saw Jalen Hurts with a real wide receiver like A.J. Brown. Dude scored 3 touchdowns yesterday. Does whatever he wants.
Yeah, in the first half.
In the first half. Like, he was just dogging them.
Yeah.
So that's why. Yeah. And I thought Philly's schedule was very favorable for them to be able to run the table. And that's what went into that for me.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good bet. And, even I do the Moxie Bets podcast with Katie Mox over at ESPN. And when we were talking over the summer about like who we think our picks are for the MVP, I went with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. But I even said on that podcast, like, if you're just betting lines, like Jalen Hurts should be the bet here. It made no sense. He was like your 5th option to win MVP. And you're kind of looking at like you got Allen, Brady, Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar Jackson. And Jalen Hurts is right in the mix, and you're kind of thinking Jalen Hurts, like why is he even up there? He hasn't really done much. And again, that's just the line telling you what is very likely to happen. Jalen Hurts having a career year this year, so hats off to him.
The last one I want to end with, and it's 30-1 to be the Super Bowl. I think we see a repeat from a couple years ago, man. I like San Francisco and Kansas City to be the Super Bowl. Kansas City, I've been buying their stock from the beginning of the year with Mahomes and everything that I've seen. Nothing has swayed me away from that. I think they're only going to get better. You're trusting the infrastructure of Kansas City. And San Fran, dude. San Fran, even with McCaffrey, and look, McCaffrey in 2 weeks might pull a hamstring, right? That's the MO of him right now. It's been the MO of him the last couple of years. But we saw what they did yesterday without Deebo Samuel. Now you throw in Deebo Samuel in there, and this is an offense and a defense. They might have one of the best defenses in the league. I'm pretty sure they're a top 5 defense last time I checked on those DVOA charts. But the NFC is not that strong. I think it's Philly, and then they're in a tier by themselves. And then there's another tier that has Minnesota and like your Dallases of the bunch. And I think San Francisco's in there with them too. And at 30-1, again, this is more so trusting the team and how those teams are built roster-wise than anything else, man. And we've seen it happen with them, right? Like San Francisco, for as much shit as Jimmy G gets, like, dude is in the conference championship games.
No, yeah, I'm not mad at that one at all. Especially like you pointed out, the NFC is very weak this year. I don't put much stock in the Cowboys. So like when I'm looking at handicapping that, I just automatically throw the Cowboys out. Obviously, that doesn't mean they can't go on a nice run in the playoffs, but we haven't seen it for quite some time. And I don't really trust Dak Prescott too much when it comes time for the playoffs. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's the Eagles at the top, and then you have, like you said, the Vikings. You got the Niners, the Bucks. I actually like the Bucks to win the NFC Championship. Again, maybe I'm just putting too much faith in Tom Brady. Maybe they're totally caught up to him. Maybe the divorce is taking a toll on him, and he doesn't really turn things around. But Tom Brady, I've won a lot of money on the arm of Tom Brady, and I'm not going to stop now. Like I said, the year he won it with the Bucks, a lot of people were writing them off early. I remember specifically it was against the Chiefs. They played the Chiefs. They got smoked by the Chiefs in Tampa. Everyone was writing them off, and they get it together, go on a nice run. I think they have the defensive pieces. They have Tom Brady. Come playoff time, who do you want to bet on? Tom Brady. So Bucks are plus 1,000 to win the NFC Championship. I like that.
Some compelling points, dude. Some compelling points. And let's see how that plays out. I'm definitely going to make some of these bets for sure.
Come playoffs, who do you want your money on? Tom Brady or Jimmy G?
Or Kirk Cousins?
yeah, exactly. Kirk Cousins. And another thing, even though this really has no effect on the game or anything, but just we're beings at the end of the day. Of course, it always plays a role in their psyche. We know Tom Brady loves playing the Eagles. He gets up for playing the Eagles. He said it in interviews before. He loves playing the Eagles because he's lost in the Super Bowl to them. He gets extra motivation playing them. So you tell me Tom Brady, we saw it last year. He knocked the Eagles out. I think they'll be able. I think the defense will be able to game plan for that offense and figure it out. So yeah, they just got to get there, and to win that NFC South is a weak division. NFC is weak overall. At plus 1,000, I like the payout there.
I love it, man. I love it. This was a fun ass conversation, Kenny. I'm excited to do these more with you moving forward. Tell the people where they can find you, your social media, things you got going on, dude.
So you can find me at Kenny Bets Big on Instagram, Twitter. Those are the two main socials that I'm on. I do a couple different podcasts. Obviously, I'm going to be on here with Nick on the Veterans Minimum. And then I do another one with KB Mox called Moxie Bets. That's every Wednesday, so you can check that out. I'm excited to, keep doing these with you, keep giving out good information, and hopefully make the listeners better, smarter bettors, and in the process, help them make more money down the stretch.
And like, dude, we also got to get you to come to Vegas, bro. Like this, that's the worst thing. And we got to wrap up because I'm gonna call you and curse you out about that. Dude's never been to Vegas. Like that's horrible. And now you got me out here.
We got Atlantic City in Jersey, man. We got AC on the,
Don't
the king
you
of
dare.
Atlantic
Listen. You still want to go to Disneyland, right? This is Disneyland when it comes to sports betting, bro. Come on, let's Atlantic City with that shit. At Nick Day is 10 is where you can find me. At Veterans Minimum is you can find everything for the show. We'll be back on Thursday with the NFL preview for Week 9, and we will catch you guys next time.